Rolling. All right. Gonna build a weather app. So I've built a weather app before. I've done a tutorial on it. It's on my YouTube. However, it was in plain vanilla JavaScript. This is going to be in React. It's going to be very similar, although it's just going to be kind of like a very basic weather app where you will see maybe a 5-day forecast. So I'm just going to dig right in. I'm using openweathermap.org/API. If you go there, go ahead and create an account. Once you have an account, you will be able to generate an API key. Now, if I go here, I might have to full screen this for a moment just so I can see the API tab because, not the API tab. Nope, I think this is what I need. So I click on my username and then right here, I can see at the top some tabs. Might be able to zoom in a little bit. Click API keys. Now I can see my API key and make sure you don't leak that. Of course, in my case, this is a specific API key for tutorials. I'm going to delete pretty soon, so I'm not worried about this key leaking here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this API key and jump into my VS Code where I will zoom in so you guys can see it. And hey there, thanks for joining me. I hope you're doing well as well. It's early on a Tuesday here in the United States. I'm not sure where you are, but hope you're having a good day or night. So I am going to initialize a React application in here using create React app. So npx create -react -app, and I'll just call this weather toot. Let that do its thing, and while that is happening, we can look at the API and see what it is we're going to be doing. So we have the one call API, which is what I think I'm going to use. It says make one API call and get current forecast, blah, blah, blah. Here is what I want, this daily forecast for 7 days. Now I can do a 7-day forecast. I guess that's what I'm probably going to end up doing. So I guess I have to click subscribe, or maybe I could just click API doc. Okay, cool. So how to make an API call. We're just going to use this URL, probably the fetch API, and then we'll pass in the values here. And each of the values are explained here in the documentation. The documentation is pretty good. So do I have to click subscribe? Probably so. Let's click it. Let's see what happens. All right, so it says free, get API key. So I don't know whether or not I'm going to need to click this yet in order to make this work, because I already have an API key that I just created at the beginning of this live stream. So we'll save this page for later, and for now, I'll just see if I can make this call in Postman. So if you're not familiar with Postman, it's just a really great tool for making API calls and debugging API stuff. Let me shrink this over here. Come on. There we go. All right. So I can paste in a URL here, and now I need to basically fill in these. I don't know how well you can see this, but basically I need to fill in these little parameters here on the URL. So the first one is latitude, the second one is longitude, and then we need to exclude, and we need the app ID, which is my API key. Now, I got my create React app initializing still. It's going to take a minute, so that's why I'm debugging this now. But basically, I don't really want to use latitude and longitude, but I will. So what we might have to do is use the browser's location API. So when you load the app up, we're probably going to have to ask the user to share their location so that they can see the weather in their area. So let's start there. And I believe that Google Chrome is going to give us that information in coordinates, which is what we need to pass into this in order to see the stuff. So let's look this up. Google Chrome location API. User location. So in order to get it, we need to, and I've done this before, but I really do need a refresher. So let's just look at a code example. Yeah, Mozilla. Perfect. So all they're doing is getting the position So they're creating a navigator, and then they're calling get current position with a success and an error callback. So we can do the same thing, and that'll be what we do when we initialize the React application. Yeah. So if I click show my location, see, now it's going to pop up with this thing where I can click allow or block. And then if I click allow, it's going to show my exact location, which I guess I'm okay with doing on a live stream in front of people. Although what I would really prefer to do is pass in a zip code. So let's look and see if we have the ability to, let's see if there's another one of these where I can just pass in the zip code instead of the exact coordinates. Go back. Okay. So let's look at the API docs for this one, and this is by city name. I would prefer this. So let's do that. And does it give me a forecast? It says access current weather data for any location. Well, that's not what I want exactly. But what I might be able to do is daily forecast 16 days if there is by city name. So this is going to be the endpoint I want to use. Let's try this one instead. Cool. CNT, that is the number of days which will be returned from the API response from 1 to 16. Let's just do a 5-day, forecast. So copy this in, paste into my Postman, and let's add an HTTPS. I don't know if it's going to be HTTP or HTTPS, and I also don't know how well you guys can see this URL, but the first one is city name. I'm going to replace with Atlanta. Then the count, I'm going to put 5 because I want 5 days. Now the API key, I'm going to grab from my profile here under API keys. I'm going to copy my API key and put it into Postman here and click send and just see what happens. It says invalid API key. So what I need to actually do, I figured this might happen, is I have to click subscribe for this particular service. So I click subscribe. I'm going to click get API key. And then I'm going to figure out why I don't see my API key. To start using our APIs, sign up here. I already did. So I clicked get API key. I mean, I had an API key, I guess. Is this not good enough for them? Invalid API key. Oops. Amazing. And it says, I mean, this is my API key. I don't know what its problem is. Okay, so do I have to add this product? Good Lord, Open Weather API. I think on the original tutorial that I did a while back, I didn't use the Open Weather API. I used a different API. I can't remember. There was 2 main ones, and this was one of them. Unfortunately, they're not making this very easy. I click get API key. Once you sign up using your email, blah, blah, blah. Invalid API key. Okay, well, since Open Weather API is not being very helpful right now, we're gonna have to choose the other one. And I think it was like literally openweatherAPI.com. Was that it? No, I don't think it was. It was not that one. Hey everyone. How are you all doing today? That's good to hear. AccuWeather, that was the other one. Okay. So, AccuWeather API. There we go. So, it takes 24 hours to activate the API key. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Hopefully not doesn't take that long for AccuWeather. So let's go to the API, go to the forecast API. Then we want to do, I guess, 10 days? 10 days of daily forecast? Or no, 5 days. That's what I really wanted. Now, I don't know what the location key is yet, so let's look at the location key. So I need to get an API key, which I will in just a moment. And I think I already have one. So this should already be activated once I log in, which I guess I can try to do now. Let's see. What would my password be? Would it... Huh. Well, let's create an account. Accept the terms. I thought I just did that. Maybe I didn't. And then create account. It's already taken. Yay. All right. Well, log in. Port exe. Oh dear. Why? There we go. Okay. So now I'm in my account and I probably have access to my apps here, which I do. Click that, then port exe forecast widget, and I have an API key. Here it is. Boom. Okay, sweet. So now I got my API key for AccuWeather, and now I'm going to go to forecast API, go to the 5 days of daily forecast, and the URL is going to be this. Now it says the location key is a unique ID used to search for a specific location. Click to edit the value. Now, I don't know what that's going to look like, but I'm copying this particular URL. Let me put the API key here in Postman and then copy this URL. I don't know where this is going to go. Okay. I'm guessing this is it says it's a get, but it doesn't require, so paste the API key in there. I'm a little confused about where the API key is going inside of the URL, but send the request. So what it looks like is this, but I'm in the process of, so this is what, okay, this is what I was looking for. This is what the curl would look like. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this, paste this into my Postman, and now we have what it needs to be. But the location key currently is empty. So if I send this request, I'm guessing it's going to say invalid location key. Correct. Now the location key, I need to figure out what that's supposed to look like, which is going, you can't see in the URL. What do you mean? The URL is fine. I just need to add the location key, which I just need to see what this location key is supposed to look like. Come on. What is with documentation websites and it just being so difficult to figure out the most simple things? Like, what is the location key supposed to look like? That should be very easy to find. Very, very easy to find. Okay, so maybe I have to use the locations API to first get the location key. City neighborhoods by location key. Yeah, the chat is a little slow, but it's not the chat, it's the delay between the latency basically of the servers. What I want is to get the location key. City search, perhaps, returns information for an array of cities. Postal code, here we go. Returns information for an array of postal codes that match your search text. So what does it return if let's paste in my API key really quick. Got it here. Paste in the API key. Text to search for, let's just say 3, I don't know, Atlanta zip code. 30301. 30301. Send the request. What do we get? We get some stuff. I'm looking to see if there's a location key somewhere in this. Let's do a search. Whoops. Unbelievable. Is this the location key? Copy that. And go back to the daily forecast and just see, or I'll just put it here. Let's see if that is a location key. That is working. That is working. Okay. So the location key I was able to get. Now I could do one of two things. I can either implement the location API and then have like a little search input where you put in a zip code, and then we hit the location API to get the location key, and then we take that location key and then send that to the weather part of the API to get the information, or I can just hard code this location key since I'm only going to do it for Atlanta for now. So what I'm going to do is hard code this for now, and then towards the end, I will potentially implement a search input to where we can actually get a location key based on a zip code. Okay, cool. So for now, I'm going to hard code it though. And I'm going to hard code this whole URL because there's really nothing dynamic in it right now. So in the background this whole time, we have been initializing this create React app. So this is all initialized. I'm going to start by just deleting all of the stuff that I don't want to use, like the React logo and this test stuff, because I'm not going to write tests for this tutorial, and get rid of this return here and turn this into an arrow function. And then get rid of this reference. Okay, cool. Good stuff here. Also, I'll get rid of the app.css reference. Boom. Get rid of this. Delete the CSS file. Create a new folder in my source folder called app, which I will capitalize, and drag the app.js file into there. And then in my index.js file, I'm just going to update the reference to be inside of the app folder, like that. And then get rid of the report vitals reference. And that should be good to initialize the app. Let me just make sure that it works. Working. And see if I can run it. npm start. Oops, I got a cd into the directory. Now run npm start. And if it's all working as expected, I should see working. And I do. Okay, so we're this far. So now what I want to do, the very first thing I should do once the app loads is to call this postman URL here that I have from the AccuWeather API. So that's what I'll do. And the best way to do that is through an effect here. So yes, use effect. And the reason why is because I only want to call this when the component mounts. So by using use effect here with an empty array, I can ensure that this is only going to get called once the component mounts. Okay. Also, I'm going to get rid of this default export. It's just not, I just collapsed it. It's just not the way that I like to do it. So I'll put that there, but I also have to make sure that I update here to be non-default export. Okay. So I'm going to use the fetch API. The URL currently hard-coded here has the API key in it and has the what we'll call the location key. But what I want to do is make sure that I'm future-proofing myself to make sure that these are dynamic. So I'm going to put these as variables. So const location key, and I want to just cut this out here. Whoops. Cut this out and turn it into an actual reference where I'm interpolating it. So we'll say location key and then set it here, although that's supposed to be a string. Boom. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the API key, because really in a real world application, you're going to actually be loading that from a environment variable or a database or something like that. So just put this here, and now we should do that. Whoops. API key. Okay, so now I have the URL set up. Let's put this on an extra on the next line here. And then what I want to do is convert the response into JSON. So the result, we're going to say res.json on that. And then once we convert that to JSON, I want to take that result and just simply log it to make sure that what we're getting back, well, just to see what we're getting back is what I should say. So this should go out to the AccuWeather API, and then we should get a result for weather for the Atlanta area. So let's see if this works. Refresh. Okay, so I have the data here, the response. Let's see what this looks like. So there's two properties. We have daily forecasts and we have headline. Now, by the way, my theme is laser wave. So follow me on Twitter if you want to keep up with that kind of stuff. But my theme is laser wave. Thanks for asking. So the two properties I get back from that response is headline and daily forecasts. So it looks like the headline is basically like what the weather is today with like a little description that says rain and thunderstorms Tuesday afternoon. It looks like a link to a weather overview and a mobile link, and then some date information and the category. Okay, cool. But that's not what I want right now. Instead, I would just want the daily forecasts. And it gives me 5 because I'm doing a 5-day forecast. And each of these daily forecasts is an item, an object in an array. Now, the objects contain all of the same stuff. We have the a bunch of stuff actually, but really all I want to care about is the temperature and like what the weather is going to be like. So let's look at the temperature. So we have a minimum and maximum. So I want to display the minimum and the maximum temperature for each day. And I also want to get like what the weather is going to be like. So for example, on the first day, it's going to be rainy, light rain. So it's not going to be storming per se. So it's going to be light rain. And the temperature is going to be anywhere from 47 to 67 degrees. That's cool. The only thing I'm missing is I need an image. So I want to be able to show like a little rain cloud for that day. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that very shortly because I think that AccuWeather provides me with that, but I might be wrong. So let's just start by displaying the minimum and the maximum temperature for the 5 days. So the best way to do that is probably to create a component that we'll just call weather day. So I'll create a new folder called weather day and weatherday.js. And yeah, it's just going to be a component. So export const weather day. Whoops. And we will return a div. Now this div is going to basically just be the weather day. It's going to have the min and the max temperature. So what I should probably do is pass in some props here. I'm thinking the min, the max, so that's in reference to the temperature, the min temperature, the max temperature, and the, I don't know what we want to call it, like rainy, sunny, cloudy. We'll call it weather type or weather type. Sure. And what we want to display in this div is the min temperature followed by the max temperature. So we'll be displaying it like the min height slash the max temperature. And I guess I can put this for now, just a little temperature text. And above that, I'm going to just put type. And I'll change this later to be a little bit more graphical. But just for now, we'll say weather type. I'll put these each in their own divs so that they're on their own line. And that should be it for now. What I need to do is actually use this component now. So I'll import it. Import weather day from weather day slash weather day. So now I have a reference to the component. Let's render it out. But I need 5 of them, right? So I should loop through the results. But I need to set state, right? So there's a couple of things I need to do in order to render out these weather days. The first thing I need to do is once this comes back, instead of console.logging the results from the API, I should set those results in state. That's the first thing. But the second thing is I need to pull out the information that I need and set that in state instead of the entire response. So let's create a chunk of state here, const, and let's use state to do that. So let's import use state. So you can see it, I just auto imported it here. And we're gonna call this state, let's call it weather info. And we'll also pull out set weather info. If you're not super familiar with how React hooks works, I have a video tutorial on that on my YouTube called React Hooks in 6 minutes, I think. But I'm gonna at least assume you guys know what's going on here. So I'm gonna initialize this actually as undefined. So I'm not gonna pass anything into use state. I'm gonna just let it be undefined. Now, when this fetch completes here, instead of logging res, I'm going to call set weather info. And I want to set the weather information equal to the result, but I want to map the result dot, let's look at the response. So result dot daily forecasts is an array. So keep that in mind. Daily forecasts is an array. So res dot daily forecasts is an array. So I can use map on that array. I'm going to use map to map the objects in that array to something that makes more sense to our application. So for each DF, I'll call it DF for daily forecast. For each daily forecast, we're going to map it to something that makes sense to our application. So what do these look like? Each of these has a temperature and a source, all that stuff. Well, we know we care about temperature because we want the minimum and the maximum. So let's go ahead and get the minimum and the maximum out. And we know that this this weather info object should have a min, a max, and then we also said a weather type. So those are the 3 things. Let's start with the min and the max. So let's return an object with a min. And the min we can actually pull out from df dot, what was that? It was dot temperature dot minimum dot value. So temperature, minimum, value. I need that. So df dot temperature dot minimum dot value, and these are all capitalized. Now I need to pull the maximum out too, so I can pretty much just copy and paste this, change min to max, and then also change minimum here to maximum. Pretty sure, right? Yep, maximum dot value. Now I'm just going to assume for now that these are both Fahrenheit. They are, but I'm not going to account for Celsius in this just because it's a simple tutorial. But the other piece of information I need to pull out is the weather type, which is it rainy, is it sunny, etc. So I need to figure out where to grab that. And it looks like it's going to be under, where can we grab that? Can we even grab that? well, I guess we might be able to pull it from icon phrase. Let's see. Intermittent clouds. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to want to do is pull it from icon phrase. Showers. Mostly cloudy. Yeah, so it's going to be .day.icon phrase. Let's pull it from there. So the weather type is going to be df.day.icon phrase. So I save this, and I just want to make sure that it looks the way that I expect it to, basically. So I should probably create one more effect that just updates whenever the weather info changes. So I can use this effect here, and in the dependency array call weather info, and whenever that changes, I just want to log it. So I want to make sure that weather info looks like I would expect it to, see if we get any errors, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to refresh, and it looks like here it is. So we have an array of 5 items, and we have a min temperature, a max temperature, and the weather type. So each of these looks exactly like I would hope it would. We have rain, intermittent clouds, along with the min and the max temperatures for each. So now I can actually take those, and for each of these items here, render out a weather, what did I call it? Weather day, and pass these 3 props into the weather day. So let's do that. Let's go in here and render a div. This will be the container for all 5 of the days. This is just the container. We'll add classes and CSS in a minute, but for each of these, I want to, what I should say is for each of these, I want to map that to a div. So weather info dot map, and for each info, I guess I'll call it, we want to render out a div. So let's do it like that. Now I also need to pull out the key. So I'm going to say for each item along with the key, and the reason why we need the key is because, or I'm calling it key, it's actually index. My apologies on that. For each of these, I need to pass in a unique key, which I'm just going to use the index for now, which may or may not be the best practice, but that's what a lot of people do. Now, inside of this div, I want to render out a weather item or a weather day. And the props that weather day accepts are min, max, and weather type, which is the exact shape of each of the items in weather info. So technically, I could probably just pass in something like props equals I or something like that, but I don't think that would work quite like that, and I'd rather be a little bit more explicit in case I add more information to this. So let's do I.min. The max will be I.max, and then finally the weather type is going to be I.weather type. So save there. But before I go much further, I want to make sure that I'm only rendering this out if weather info exists. So if weather info exists, then we can do it. And I'll convert this into a Boolean just in case. I don't want to render out anything weird. So convert this to a Boolean. If this does exist, in other words, if it's not undefined, then we're going to loop through and render all those divs out. So in here, just to make sure that we are, oh, actually I'm rendering it out so I can probably already see it. Okay, cannot read property map of undefined. So that was an error because I hadn't been checking. I didn't add this piece right here, and it didn't just auto clear the console. So now that I refreshed, you don't see that error anymore. So that's good. Okay, this is good. So these are the 5 days, the 5-day forecast for Atlanta. It doesn't look pretty yet. We'll get to that, but it looks like the information is displaying as expected. Sweet. So what I need to do is figure out how to take this piece right here, this intermittent clouds thing and the showers and all that, and grab an icon from AccuWeather and show the icon instead of just the word showers or the word intermittent clouds and that sort of thing. And I believe that somewhere in here, there is a way to do that. And I have to, yeah, so there's this weather icons thing, right? Now, I have to look at this, so I got to remember how to map it to each one. So is there any documentation on this in particular? Of course not. That would be too too good for them. So I don't know, maybe I can open the image in a new tab and just like let's look at that response one more time from AccuWeather to see if there's any metadata that we can pull from to get the icon. So we're setting here, but let's add another then that we just log with. So console.log res. So let's do that. And oops, no. Forgot, we can't do it like that. We got to go. Let's make this a little prettier before things get too crazy. Okay. So I want to take all this. I really should have implemented the prettier plugin for this, because right now things are not super pretty. Getting there though. So let's just do this, that, something like that. I think that looks a little bit better. It's a little easier to read. Okay, so above this, that's where I'll log the res. And let's go ahead and look. Just refresh. So let's see if there's anything in here that I can use to sort of map a icon to. Okay, here it is. So it says icon 18. I bet you that this number here can be used in some way to, yeah. So let's look at the 18th icon. Let's change 01 to just be 18. So when I changed that number up here, I know it's kind of hard for you to see, especially the URL. There was a number in the URL that was just 1. When I changed it to 18, now it looks like rainy weather. Now, if we go back to here, you can see that the icon phrase is rain, which is what we're using to basically determine what the weather is going to be like for that day. So I can use this number to probably, show an icon. So I'm going to cut this URL out and go back to my code. And inside of the weather day, instead of saying the type is whatever weather type, I want to render an image out. So let's put an image tag in there and set the source. I'm going to use the backticks for string interpolation and paste in the URL that I just cut out. And now you can see this 18 here. I'm going to cut this out and put in my little interpolation thing here so I can put in a variable. So basically making that number dynamic. And I want to accept one more prop in this component. Weather type, we're going to say weather key. And this weather key is going to be that number. So I can pass it into this string here. And since I have this weather key thing, I need to make sure that I pass it in here. So I need to pull it out as well. And the property was the icon. So it's at the same exact level as icon phrase, but instead of icon phrase, I'm going to use icon here. So let's add one more property to this object called weather key. And it'll be at the exact same place as weather type, but instead of icon phrase, it's icon. So now I have this weather key that I want to pass into the weather day as well. So weather day, I'm sorry, weather key is equal to i.weatherKey. And let's just get everything on different lines so that we can see everything on the screen at the same time. Make it a little easier for everyone. Cool. So save this. And this is going to complain because it wants me to worry about accessibility, I think. Right? It says image elements must have alt prop. So let's just put an alt here. And I'm just going to set it equal to the weather type. And save. So what do we have here? So it works pretty well for the rain, but it doesn't really look like it's working too well for intermittent clouds or mostly cloudy. Now I think I have a suspicion. I might know what's going on here. I think these must be single digits. So for rain, that was the 18th icon. So that's a 2-digit number, 18. But let's just say hypothetically intermittent clouds or mostly cloudy is like 7. Well, in the URL, it wants a 2-digit number, so it would be 07. But I bet you that what's coming back from the API isn't 07, it's 7 because it's a number. So let's look and see if I'm correct on my assumption here. Okay, for example, 4. So I was right. So what I have to do is convert this 4 to be 04 if it's a 1-digit number. So I'm going to write a very simple function that determines whether or not it's a 1-digit number. And if it is a 1-digit number, we're going to add a 0 to the beginning. Okay. Lots of talking, not enough water. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this. So I think the best place to do that is actually here when we're setting the object. We can probably do this here. So the weather key right now is a number, but we're going to convert it to a string and determine whether or not it is a single digit or not. So I'm going to just write a function that does this, const pad num. I'll call it pad num, and it's going to accept a number, and it's going to return a string that's always going to be a 2-digit number. So let's first convert this num to a string. So const string num is equal to, let's just say num plus an empty string. Then let's get the length of this string. So const string length is equal to string num dot length. Now under here, we're going to do an if statement. If string length is equal to 1, in other words, it's like 4 or 3 or something like that, then we're going to say return 0 plus the string num. So in other words, if we pass in 4, it's going to return 04. Now, anything else, we're going to just simply return the original string num itself. Oops. So in other words, 17 would just return 17. So we are going to take this pad num function and set it here, pass this into it. So pad num and pass this into it. And now potentially, maybe if we're lucky, this is just going to look, this is going to work. It did. Okay, cool. So now we see the icons and the temperatures underneath it. Perfect. I don't really like the way that this looks. The fact that it says temp 47/67. A lot of people might not understand what that means. So let's change what that says really quick. We can just say min here, min, and we can say max. So that might look a little bit better for now. I think that looks just a little bit better. Now what I want to do is put them all on the same line. Now I'm going to shrink this just ever so slightly. I hope you all can see it. But I want to shrink it just enough to where I can see it all on the same line without it being too big and overflowing. So let's add a little bit of CSS, and the best way to do that, in my honest opinion, is through CSS modules. So I'll create a new file inside of my weather day folder called style, styles.module.css, and I'll create a main class, which is just going to be display, well, actually, honestly, let's hold on a second. Let me, instead of doing the CSS in the weather day folder, let's do it in the app. So styles.module.css. And the reason why is because I want to do display flex, but I have to do that on the container. So the container happens to be in the app component. And I need to give this div that class name. So class name equals styles.main, but I have to import my CSS file, which I'll do at the top. I have a snippet that does that for me. So I'm importing styles from styles.module.css, which is in the same folder here. I added that main class of display flex. So that display flex should be applied to this container div here. Let's see if it worked. It did. So let me add a little bit of margin between them, just really quick. Maybe, I don't know, let's say margin 15 pixels. That might be too much. I'm not 100% sure if that worked. Actually, it's not. That's because it's the container. So let's create another class called day and then add that margin there and then give this the day class. So class name equals styles dot day. Save that, and now we should see the margin. Perfect. I mean, this isn't like the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, to be honest. But let's give it maybe a background color of gray and then a border radius of probably 5 pixels, padding 10 pixels, and then maybe a box shadow of 0.03 pixels black, maybe. And then let's see what that looks like. And then let's make each day display flex as well. Set the flex direction to column. And I don't know, let's do align items center and also justify content center and see what that looks like. That looks pretty good, kind of. It looks like the reason why the image and the text, like the reason why the image, I should say, isn't centered is because the image is actually a child of, sorry, everything's so big on my screen, I can't really see what I'm looking at. The image here is a child of this div, which is a child of this div, which is a child of that other div. So in reality, I don't really need all of these divs. I can get rid of this container here, and I can also get rid of this container here and just make it a fragment. Potentially. Let me just, yes. Okay, perfect. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the black text on gray, so I might convert that to white really quick, but I don't know if that's going to look good. Let's find out if it looks good. My suspicion is maybe not. Color white. Not a huge fan, but let's just do text shadow. 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 1 pixel black. I mean, that looks okay. I think that looks all right. Now, the only other thing I want to do is make the font size a little smaller. Let's just set it to 10 pixels. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Let's make it look like that. Now, as I said earlier, this is just Atlanta's weather, which I don't really want to just hard code Atlanta's weather into my weather app, right? I want to be able to search for another city's zip code and see the weather for any city that I search for. So let me go into here, create a new folder called location search, maybe, and create a new component called location search.js, where I'm just going to render out an input. So export const location search, make that a function, which is just going to return, gotta spell return right, return a input tag. And this input tag is going to accept a zip code. And then when we finish typing the zip code, we can search for the location and get the location key that we're passing in to get the weather information for right now, Atlanta, but let's make this dynamic. I'm actually going to return a div because I want to return an input and also a button. And this button needs to say search. So the input Should probably create some state, right? Const. We'll use state. What is going on here? Use state. Looks like use state didn't auto import here. Let's import it manually. Use state from React. And what I want to call this is probably zip code. Set zip code. And I'll initialize it as an empty string and set that as the value. So value is equal to zip code. Now, whenever that value changes, whenever we type into the input, I want to update the zip code. So on change, the val, or we could just call it the event because it's a on change event. Just short, we'll say E for short. Set zip code equal to e.target.value. Okay. I'm going to capitalize the C in zip code so that my editor will stop complaining about misspelled words. Okay. And then when we click on the button for search, what we want to do is call, the API, right? So let's say we create a function called getLocation. That's just a function here. And we're going to pass that in as the onClick event for this button. What we're going to do when this happens is call this API. Now, I got to look and see what the endpoint is for this particular. I no longer need the open weather stuff, right? We're using AccuWeather. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can actually see. And I can go to location info and look at the URL for that. Why isn't it? Location API. There we go. And I think what I ended up using was city search. Or no, it was, I'm sorry, it was postal code search, right? Postal code search. So this is going to be the URL I want to use. It's a GET request. And let's look at an example curl. Okay, well, I have to pass in my API key in order for this to work. So let's grab the API key. Also, if you hear jingling, that's my cat. So let's grab this API key right here and paste it in here. And then let's pass in the zip code that I used, 30301, send the request. Now let's look at the curl. Okay, this is what I want to copy right here. So let's hard code part of this URL. Let's say const URL equals, use the backtick so I can interpolate, paste into here. Change this to be dynamic so we can say API key. And then this is the zip code. This is where we want to actually pass in the zip code. So the URL looks good, but I need to have the API key. So I'm just going to copy this. Again, this is going to end up having to come from like an environment variable. So I might as well just go ahead and do that now, right? So that I don't have to worry about it. So the best way to do that is to create, I think, let me get rid of this Web Vitals thing. I think I could probably do a .env file. Let's just try it really quick. We'll call it API key, sure. Set that equal to that. And then let's see if I can pull out the API key via process.env.api key. See if this works. Save it, maybe restart the server just to be sure. And then underneath it, let's log it. Whoa. Let's log when this component loads. Sorry. I'm thinking and typing a little bit faster than I want to. So let's set API key here in the app component equal to process.env.api key and just see if if this works. So console.log API key, make sure that it's loading my env file, which it may or may not be doing. Too much stuff in the log. Let's refresh. It says it's undefined. So I don't know if .env works right out of the box with create React app, to be honest. So what I'm going to do instead of this is just create a new file called constants.js, and I'll export a const called API key and pass it in here. Save it, delete my .env file, and just import it from here from now on. So this constants.js file. So get rid of this reference and just import it from constants instead. Oh gosh. API key from constants. And I'll have to do the same inside of my location search. Okay, so now I have a reference to API key, which we will set here. Okay, so now I have the URL. Let's call fetch on that. Fetch the URL, convert the response to JSON. And then take that response and simply log it to see what that object looks like. Right here. And this is gonna get called whenever I click this button. So I need to render this component out right here. Let's render it at the top of everything. So let's take this main class div here and actually put it inside yet another div. And let's render it right here. Location search. Rendering it should have auto imported. I believe it did. Yep, auto imported. Save. See what happens when I click the button, click search. I get an empty array. And the reason why it's empty is because I didn't type anything into here. So let's type in 30301 and then click it again. Get empty array. So the reason why that's empty is because I don't think we're updating the stuff. So I'm actually going to pass in zip code, by the way, instead of using the state directly from within this function. So I need to call get location with the zip code. And I just want to log the zip code here, log zip, just to make sure that I'm updating the search as expected. So 30301, click search. So 30301 is indeed there. So let's look in the network tab and see what we're sending. So much stuff. Okay. So the URL is this. It's a GET request. It seems to look the way that I would want it to. What do we get back exactly? An empty array for sure. So when I call it here, what's the response? The response is an empty array. And I guess the reason why, I mean, if I look at this one was successful, right? If I look at the curl, the response is not an empty array. It's the same zip code, right? Same zip code, 30301. Perhaps the URL is slightly different. Let's copy it and send the request again just to see. Did it work? Response is not an empty array. So I'm actually going to just see, maybe there was an error in my URL here. So let's paste this in. Replace this with zip. And let's replace this with API key. Save it and see if we have any errors. Console 30301 search. And okay, yeah, so there must have just been a typo somewhere. Now look at this. We have 3 results. Which one do we pick? I mean, what we really need to pull out is this location key. And there's 3 results. So how do we know which one to pick? Let's find out. So we will look and see the primary postal code for the first item is 30301. Same with the second one. So what is the difference, right? it looks like the country. The difference is the country. Interesting. So what we need to do is keep it localized to the United States. So I can search through these items, and by the way, if you're in a different country, you could totally filter it out for your country as well. But since I'm in the United States, I want to filter it out to make sure that I'm getting the correct one. And in order to do that, I need to find something that says United States. Right here. Country.id should equal the United States, so US. Perfect. So I'm going to do a filter, or not a filter, but a find on this array, the results, and pull out the one where the country.id is equal to US. So let's do that now. Let's just chain a then to it and say return res.find. It was an array, right? It was just a raw array. Yeah, it was a raw array. Res.find L, short for location, where L.country, was it country code or country? I think it was country, right? L.country.id is equal to US. So L.country.id is equal to US. So we want to make sure we return only that. So let's save it and see what we get. When we type in 30301, we get a single item instead of an array, and it is indeed the one that I wanted. Now, once we get this particular object, the only thing that I care about, actually, you know what? I care about a few things. I want to show the city name so that up here above the weather, we can see the name of the city just as visual confirmation that whatever they typed into here is what they would expect, or what they expected, I mean. So let's say the name of the city along with the state, so we can get the state from here, and the location key. So that's three things: the city, the state, and the location key. Let's pull those three things out. Let's just start with the key and the localized name for now. So localized name and key. Let's make sure we set some state. So actually, instead of setting state, let's do an output. Let's output an event we'll call on city found. We'll end up passing that as a prop into this location search from here. So let's create a function called const. Actually, I don't need to do that. Wherever we're rendering this out, we can say on city found. We're going to end up receiving that object with those three items in it that I was just talking about. So we'll say info, city info. We'll call that object city info. And let's just simply log it for now. And I'll log it with a message that says found, city found. So once we get this all set up, we should see that log. So on city found, let's call that here. So on city found, and let's pass in an object, and let's pull out those properties I was talking about. The first one is going to be we'll call it city name, or just name. Yeah, let's just call it name. I believe it was localized name, so we can say res.localized name. Just verify that it was localized name, correct. The second thing I want is the key, so let's pull out the key. The key, and that is res.key. And then the third thing I wanted was the state name. So we'll call it state. And that'll be res dot, what is it? Administrative area dot ID. So administrative area dot ID. That'll give me the state. So administrative area dot ID. Save, and let's see if we get the log that we would expect. Hopefully we do. Click search. We get found with Atlanta, Georgia, and the key. So far, so great. Now, instead of just simply logging stuff, let's go back and actually update some state. So we're going to need another piece of state. See how location key is currently hard-coded? We don't want to do that anymore. We want that to be state. So const location key and set location key is equal to use state, initialize that as an empty string, and we'll get rid of this hard-coded location key, which ironically was wrong in the first place. It was like a different country's weather. But we have this location key state, and we want to just simply make sure that we don't render this weather day stuff unless we have that location key. So we need weather info and location key. Well, we will never have weather info if we don't have the location key, because we need that location key to find the information on the weather. So I can keep this logic here that only renders this out if weather info exists. I don't need to add the location key here as well. So that's great. But it looks like this is yellow. It says we need to pass in location key into this dependency array. Now, what is this going to do logically? Well, keep this in mind. Whenever anything in this dependency array of this use effect changes, so whenever location key changes in this case, this whole thing is going to run again. So whenever location key changes, it's going to trigger the fetch to get the weather information with that updated location key. So now this is no longer going to run on init. So let's save it, and we can see that we have stuff that's broken. And it is broken because, let's look at line 29. Line 29. We need to make sure that location key exists before we run any of this logic. So let's put it inside of an if. If location key, then we do this. Now we save, and you can see, let's refresh, make sure there's no errors. Some water real quick. Excuse me. As you can see, there's no weather information here. Well, let's see what happens when we search for 30301 and click search. Now we have this logged. Let's apply this in that component to then render out the weather information. All right. So to do that, since we have everything set up, all we have to do is set the location key. And as soon as we set the location key state within this app component, it's going to trigger this effect, and it's going to run and get the information. It will then set the weather info. And once the weather info is set here, this is going to render with the weather days. So instead of console.logging this, let's simply set the location key equal to cityinfo.location key. Now let's refresh and type in 30301, click search, and it looks like it did not work. So let's see why. Let's log something. So whenever location key changes, let's just log location key. So it's undefined. So I must be setting it wrong. I think it's, instead of location key, it should just be key. So .key. That's probably what the issue was. It's supposed to be .key because that's what I named it in this component. Let's find out. Click search. Now we have the weather for Atlanta. Awesome. Now let's change it. Let's change it to a different zip code. Let's see. By the way, in the chat, if you just want to throw me as your zip code, if you live in the United States, throw me your zip code and I'll paste it into here. If nothing pops up, I'll just Google a zip code. But hopefully someone in the chat gives me a zip code. So in the meantime, while I wait for that, I will style up the search input a little bit. So we'll give it a class name equal to styles dot. Hey Zendro, yes, you can ask something as long as it's relevant to the stream. If it's not relevant, I might answer it still, but no spammy questions. Styles, gosh, styles.module.css. Let's do a main class, display flex. then yeah, that works. Let's style the input. Give it some padding. I don't know, 8 pixels. Border radius, 3 pixels. Yeah, that should be fine for now. Let's do the same thing for the button. And then let's give each one a margin of like 5 pixels. And I have to import the styles. Save. Oh. Styles.main. And that looks a little better. It's kind of ugly. Let's get rid of the outline. So we can say outline none and border none. But maybe set like a box shadow. Sure. Box shadow, 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 3 pixels, gray. That might look better. Yeah, I think that looks okay. And let's set a placeholder on this input that tells the user what you're supposed to even type here in the first place. So placeholder zip code. Hey Zendro, I saw you said, can I ask something? But you never asked the question. So I'll answer it. You just got to ask it. As long as it's relevant to the stream. Also, anybody who's watching right now, send me a zip code if you live in the United States, and I'll test it out right now. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to Google a zip code. Okay, so let's look and see if this looks good. Refresh. Okay, so we have that. Let's do 30301. Search. Weather pops up. Super nice. Still just waiting on a zip code from anyone in the chat who wants to paste in a zip code. Otherwise, I'm just going to Google it in probably, I don't know, 10 seconds or so. Or it could be that my chat is super slow. I don't know. But there's 14 people watching and no zip codes popping up. All right, I'm Googling a zip code. Can't wait any longer. Let's see, New York. 10001. Let's try that. 10001. Is that right? Yeah. Search. Okay, so now we get updated weather. So right now, apparently today, I think it's today, it might be tomorrow, I don't know. It's supposed to be sunny and rainy at the same time. Good old New York. So let's say 10001 weather, just to verify that it's the same. Okay, this says that it's sunny, but the precipitation chance is very low, so I don't know how accurate that is. Let me do 30301 and just verify that it's going to be like intermittent clouds. 30301 weather. Yeah, I mean that's the same icon, like a sun and some clouds, and then tomorrow it's supposed to be rainy, and tomorrow it's supposed to be rainy. So it looks like it's somewhat accurate. I can only rely on the AccuWeather's data. But okay, so the only thing that I think I want to do now functionality wise is whenever I search for a new city, I want to clear the input. I also want to display the city name and the state above the weather. So that's two things. Let's start with displaying that. So let's go to the app component, and above the main, or I'm sorry, above day, let's just put it here. Let's throw an H1 that says the city name and the state. Okay, someone said 90001. Let's do that. 90001. The chat might be super laggy. I don't know if there's about to be a bunch of zip codes popping up or what. So wherever you live, Bala, or wherever this is, the weather's looking great for you for the next week. Very lucky. Cool. So back to this. Let's say the city name. Oh, actually, I'll use that too. I'll find out what that city and state is in a second. Let's do, what were we calling that? City info? Oh, we need to actually set it up here. So let's say const location. Whoops. Location and set location. This is just going to be a string representation of the city and the state. I'll initialize it as an empty string, And then whenever we set the stuff here, set location key, I'm going to also set the location itself equal to a string. Let's do, I don't know, city info dot name plus a comma and a space followed by the state. So city info dot state. Now we can do location, but we only want to render location. Well, since we initialize it as an empty string, it won't break. So let's look. 90001. This is Bala, Los Angeles. Okay, I didn't quite get the state though. That doesn't seem to have rendered very well. Yeah, I'll figure that one out in just a second. But let me also make sure this is on its own line. And it's not because I'm using display flex. So what I'm going to actually probably do is pop this out of this display flex here, save it, and now it's on its own line. Cool. So let's figure out why the state isn't rendering. Instead, it's just the location. You said India? Oh, yeah. So that was probably... so I don't know how long you've been watching the stream, but we're filtering out just to show locations in the United States only. So that zip code happens to be Los Angeles in the United States, but I'm not sure where. I mean, if I were to set it up for India, it would have worked there too, but sorry about that. Okay, so let's figure out why cityinfo.state is not coming through. So let's log it first off. Console.log cityinfo. We're getting really close to the end here. 90001. Okay. So the state, it says California. There must be a typo somewhere in my, oh, that's what it is. I need to do plus, not a comma. There it is. Okay. Los Angeles, California. Perfect. Now let's set a little bit of a padding on the left side, not digging it without the padding. So I think it needs to be, how much padding do we need to add? How much padding do we need? 15 pixels. So let's just say any H1 in this component. Actually, let's just give it a class name. Styles.header. Give this a header class and set the padding left to 15 pixels. Okay, that didn't quite work. Did I miss something? Oh. Did that not? Where's the class name? What's going on? I need the class name. I mean, I'm setting the class name here, right? Here, let's just throw this inside of a div, and I'll worry about that later. Cut, paste, see if that works. What is going on? Why isn't the class name there? The class name is not showing up. Is that weird or what? You know what? Let's just name it something else. Maybe it's because I was calling it header. That's the only thing I can think of. Maybe that's some special name. I don't know. City info. Let's just call it that. And then update the class name here. That's really bizarre to me. That is not showing the class name. What is going on with that? there's no class name here, even though I definitely just added it. Let me restart my React server. I don't know why. Oh, I'm in the wrong file. Remember, guys, if you're ever coding and you're like, React isn't working right, it's probably your own fault, just like it was my fault there. Get the location, and we successfully call onCityFound. After this gets called, I'm going to call set zip code to an empty string. So that should clear the input whenever we search. So we'll click search. That successfully clears the input. Now let's do 90001. Click search. It updates, and this gets cleared. And yes, I will be saving this video. It will be available on my YouTube channel. As soon as this live stream is over, it will be available on YouTube. So just make sure you're subscribed there, of course. Just to answer your question there, Hitesh. All right. I think that... Oh, you guys are all in India? Okay, well, I hope you're all doing well. I know that the virus is going crazy in India right now. Please stay safe out there. I think that's basically it for this video. I don't know what else to add, really. I mean, I could definitely make it prettier, but that's not what this is about, right? We just wanted to build a weather app that worked, and I think that this works pretty well. But I don't know. Is there anything else I can add that would just make it a little bit better? Let's see. I know in my vanilla JavaScript tutorial, what I ended up doing was showing a different background image depending on the current weather. Like if it's sunny, it shows like a sunny image as the background image. But I don't really want to do all that right now. I'm thinking functionality-wise, I kind of wonder if there's something else to do here. Not really design. Maybe... Nah. I might do this in another video, but maybe to be able to click on one of the days and see all of the weather information for that specific day instead of just seeing the minimum and the maximum temperatures, I'd be like, okay, click, and then it will show me the full information for that day. You know, actually, one thing that's missing that I want to do is add the weekday on there, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, I don't really know what these days are. So let's add that. I want to add that, but I need to see what information is available to me. Let's go to weather day. Whenever this, no, not weather day, app. I think that's where we're making that API call, right? Yes. So whenever we get the result, I'm going to log it, and I want to see if I can get day information from it. So I think that there was day information. So let's look. Let's type in 30301, search, and in daily forecasts, we actually have a date object. Perfect. So what I want to do is for each of these days, convert that date object to like a date string that just says Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, etc. Yeah, let's do that. So if I remember correctly, so let's just copy this. Actually, I don't need to copy that. What was the path? It was dot date. Very simple. Let's set another property in here called day of week. And let's see if we can create a new date from df.date. And then I think we can do dot get day. Yeah, let's actually log this up here to make sure that this looks the way that I want it to. Let's do res 0. So just pull the first one out, log it. Let's see what it looks like. I think I just broke my app. Cannot read property date of undefined. Oh. It's supposed to be .daily forecasts. There we go. Save that. Oops, don't forget the dot. Why did I paste it twice? There we go. 2. So I would have to convert that. So I think it's like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So I would have to convert that, probably map it to a weekday. Or is there just a way for the JavaScript API to handle that for me? Like, let's say JavaScript date, day of week. There's got to be a way, right? Oh, they literally are just mapping it. Yeah, they're mapping it. So that's basically what I was thinking I was going to do. Actually, instead of doing like a switch case, I'm just going to do an actual JavaScript object. So let's just map that out. It's a little bit of boilerplate, but it'll be worth it. Const days of week equals, and 0 is going to be Sunday. Actually, the easiest way to do this is to make it an array. Sunday, Monday. This is kind of tedious, but it'll be worth it. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I can use the index now to pull this out of the array. So days of week. Let's do that. Let's say, let's get this. Let's just simply console.log. Wait, need this whole thing. Console.log days of week. And then this is going to be an index. So let's see what this logs. Tuesday. So day of week will be this. But it looks like I need to add days of week into here as a dependency. Actually, instead of doing that, I'll just put that inside of the effect since that's the only place I'll ever use it. So get rid of this, put it at the top of the effect here, just like that. Perfect. Now I need to actually pass this weather info, this new day of week thing, into the weather day. We'll call it day of week is equal to I.day of week. And then in the weather day component itself, at the top, we can, you guessed it, render day of week. Let's just destructure that out. Save. And refresh, perhaps. 30301, search. Okay, so it's all Tuesday. And the reason why it's all Tuesday is because I forgot to unhardcode the 0 here. Notice this 0. Instead of 0, we want to use, I think it was what was it? Day. So we're mapping, so it'd be df.date, capital D, date. Okay, save that. Let's see. Date of undefined. Wait, why would question mark maybe? Hold on. I think I'm dealing with too big of a string right now. Let me log this out one more time, or am I already logging it? I think I'm already logged. Nope, I'm not. Let's undo this change really quick. put it back to the hard-coded 0, and log. Each of these will log console.log df. See what we get. So it is, oh yes. That's right, okay. Oof. This is what happens when you code and live stream for, I don't know how long it's been, hours or something. You start to get a little hazy. So this is supposed to be df. Perhaps. Maybe. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Cool, I like it. All right, let's do 90001. We got Los Angeles, California, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Cool. All right. I think that's going to be all. Pretty simple little weather app. I think that if you followed this tutorial, if you're watching this in the future instead of watching it live, you can very easily from here style it